Film is a disease, Frank Capra said. When it infects your bloodstream, it takes over as the number one hormone. It plays Iago to your psyche. As with heroin, the antidote to film is more film.
My name is Bond.
Bond.
Bond. Bond.
Bond. Bond.
James Bond.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to my Celluloid Heart podcast. Today's episode is, of course, as you see in the title, Diamonds Are Forever from 1971. And so welcome to my show. And, of course, as always, my shows normally take two films, bring them together with one topic or theme, and then I throw facts in there. But leading up to April, these are all going to be James Bond. So each show is going to be James Bond up until April 15th. That'll be the final James Bond that comes out on April 10th. Well, final for now. No Time to Die. So today on the show, I have a special co-host that Robert Jones from Las Vegas. He lives in Vegas. He's a film editor, and he also does other work, pays the bills normally, and then edits movies and things on YouTube, makes some great videos. And I've had him on the show before. He's been on my Edgar Wright episode, so that was pretty nice, which I enjoy. And some corrections that I actually have from the last show that one of the fans actually wrote me on my Facebook page, which was pretty cool. His name is Sean Holstein, and what he wrote me very nice things. But then he's a big James Bond fan, and he corrected me. So let me read the whole thing that he wrote me. Hello. I am an old Bond fan. Don't know how old you are. I was born in 1971, as was I, when Diamonds Are Forever came out. It is not a great film by any means, but I love its smuttiness and quirkiness. But in April of 1985, I rented On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and it has been my favorite since then. Goldfinger is always good, too. I appreciate your knowledge of Bond. So many podcasts don't know what they are talking about. The only thing is that Sid Haig is actually in Diamonds as one of the gangsters that take Connery's Bond from L.A. to Vegas and the mortuary. He is the guy in the back seat that says, I got a brother. Anyway, thanks for the excellent podcast. So I told him thank you. I told him also that, yes, I had two facts going on at the same time. So it was kind of crazy. And it was very, so I had the Sid Haig, and in both movies, three guys grab the guy and take him away. So, On Her Majesty's Secret Service and Diamonds Are Forever. So, yes. So that was good. That's what I mean. Send me those corrections. I love it. So you can send them to mycelluloidheart@gmail.com, or you can call that number, 602-688-2403. Leave a message, or you could text on there. Or you can go to the Facebook page like he did and send me a message that way. So that's pretty interesting. And some movies that I watched at home or in the theater were, that I forgot to mention before, of course, Diamonds Are Forever. I didn't mention on the Diamonds Are Forever. On the one before, I had already watched Diamonds Are Forever. So anyway, I watched Diamonds Are Forever from 1971. It's really good. I enjoyed it. Duel at Diablo from 1966. So on the Criterion channel, they have these Sidney Poitier movies. And one of them looked like a, spaghetti western style type with Sidney Poitier in it. I saw this little snippet of it in the teaser for the whole thing of Sidney Poitier. And I was like, wow, that sounds cool. It's a western. That looks neat. So I picked Duel at Diablo out of the movies, but it was not Duel at Diablo. It's Buck and the Preacher. So I sat through all of Duel at Diablo, which was okay. just your regular Western. Had James Garner in it, but the one was Buck and the Preacher, so now I want to watch that. Then my wife and I both, but she got into In the Heat of the Night. And she's like an old soul, and maybe we're both an old married couple. She's 10 years younger than me, but we started watching In the Heat of the Night, the TV show on Amazon Prime. And it's a good show. It's actually got some real good stuff in there, and we're like, holy shit. This is one I watched the other day. It was kind of preachy, but other than that, it's pretty good. So I told her, I said, you know that this is from a movie? And she said, no, I did not. Because she asked me, when does this take place? I go, this takes place like in the 80s when the show came out in 88 or 89. And I go, but in the 60s, that's when the original came out in 1967. So on there, Sidney Poitier, In the Heat of the Night from 1967. It's a really good movie. I watched that, and fucking Rod Steiger, he deserves that award that he got because he's really good. He is really good. So anyway, check that movie out. I finally got to see that, knock that off of my semi-bucket list, a movie that I should have seen that I never saw. Then on Amazon Prime, I saw a show called Game Show Dynamos from 2015. It's like a documentary type, but it's about this married couple that needed to pay their bills, and so they happened to be on all these game shows. They would be on Jeopardy, and they'd be on Tic-Tac-Dough, and all this stuff, and they would win, and they'd bring the money home, and then because they were kind of popular on these shows, kind of had this great spirit and attitude, people would invite them on the show. So they were like, they would say, yeah, sure, we want you. So they would reach out to them. They didn't really have to apply. So anyway, it's pretty interesting. I like seeing those old game shows. It was a nice little insight into these people's life that you wouldn't have known about. So, I give it a 3 out of 5. So if you want to watch it, go ahead. It's like an hour, so it's no big deal. Then I finished The Ranch. I usually don't talk about The Ranch. Maybe I do sometimes, but The Ranch finally finished its whole run. And I really like that show because it's funny, and then all of a sudden they'll have these heartfelt moments in it, and you're just like, oh. So it gets me every time. My wife's turning to me going, are you crying? I go, no. And I legitimately had something in my eye. I'm like, I got something in my eye, some rock or something, like a piece of granule or something. And she's like, yeah, right. And I'm like, no, really. Like, I've been crying, but right now I got something in my eye. Anyway, so yeah, I'm a big baby when it comes to that. And then I saw Dr. Sleep from 2019. This was really a good movie. I really liked it. I had heard it was good. It's a good sequel to The Shining. They have some Shining in it. And they even have Henry Thomas playing the young, playing Jack Nicholson, playing Jack Torrance. So it's very cool. Not through a lot of it, just through little bits. Doesn't take you out of it. It's fine. You get it. And so anyway, it's really, really good. So I really enjoyed it. And I have the director's cut. I have the regular cut, the director's cut. I won a contest. And so I got that movie. So it was really good. The director's cut, I haven't watched yet, but I'm going to because I bet it'll have more detail into it. So it's very cool. So now I'm going to play you a little Diamonds Are Forever music, and then I'm going to put on the pre-recorded show that I have. It's actually not pre-recorded. I'm getting ready to record it with my friend here in a little bit. So thank you for listening, and here's a little Diamonds Are Forever, Forever, Forever.
Diamonds are forever. They are all I need to please me. They can stimulate and tease me. They won't leave in the night. I've no fear that they might desert me. Diamonds are forever.
I'm here with Robert, as I said, Robert Jones. I hope your last name's okay. If not, I can erase that. And
No!
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
No, we're good. We're good.
All right. And like I've told everybody before in my intro that, you live in Vegas, and I wrote it on the Facebook page. You live in Vegas, you love Vegas, so who better to do this with than, you, because you love Vegas.
Yes. I was drawn to Vegas before I ever came here, just watching Ocean's 11, I think, came at a time in like my mid 20s, the 2001 version, George Clooney and everybody. So
Yeah.
I just fell in love with that movie. And once I didn't go to Vegas for the first time till about 2003.
Oh, wow.
And fell in love. Yeah, we were a buddy and me were living in Southern California, and he was like, "You want to just drive up to Vegas tonight, and we'll come back tonight." It's like a not even spend the night kind of situation.
Yeah.
And it's about 4 hours each way. I mean, we were young guys, so this like made sense to us.
Yeah, yeah. Were you like swingers? Where you like Vegas, and then like 2 hours later, you're like Vegas?
No, I loved it. What the thing is I love the atmosphere and the architecture and the lights. I was blown away by the lights just driving down the strip.
Yeah.
The energy of the place. So it was more that than what was actually going on inside the buildings.
Yeah.
It's more the attitude and the energy of the people and people just coming there wanting to have fun.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing that's crazy is it's all crazy how it even got started with, with all those guys, Bugsy and everybody going, yeah, let's do this. And people going, it's the middle of the desert. Who's going to go there? And, and then sometimes it would fail. There was a good documentary about Rose Marie. She's in Dick Van Dyke's show. Mm-hmm. And she's a singer, and she used to perform. And she said one day, like, she needed money and they couldn't afford anything, whatever. And she ran into Bugsy in the commissary. And she was like, look, I don't have money. Like, I can't come back here anymore because I'm not getting paid or not getting paid enough. And he pulled out money and gave her cash to, help her. So it was, it was a real nice thing. So
that's a great story. Yeah.
Yeah. It's, they're not all bad mobsters, some of them, and it's all money making. So, that, but.
Well, I'll tell you, just living here for a long time and meeting a few of those people who seem like they might have had ties to the gangster era, and those people is they emphasize how important it is taking care of their own.
Yeah.
Like the casino, the staff.
Yeah.
Looking out for each other. And so, they're honorable people within their own, honor among thieves, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Well, and it's, they knew not to steal money from the counting room because the mob will fucking kill you. You're not just going to get fired. You're going to get in, bigger trouble. You'll be out in the desert, So, but anyway, yeah, I love the history of it. I saw my Ocean's 11. I love the original. I like the new one too, the 2001. But the original was really cool because in that one, I don't know if you've seen it.
Oh, yeah.
But, oh, okay. I like where then they cremate the guy and they lost all that money. Like, it's such a great, like, twist. Like, you're like, it's so cool.
You can't top that. Absolutely. It went for a little bit more like sentimental. Yeah. That with the Claire de Lune at the end and the slow motion and the fountains and everything.
Yeah, because it was almost that same thing of them showing everybody waiting at the Bellagio fountain when, the original had them all sitting in the pews, and it was just going across all their faces, and they were just devastated. So, but anyway, I guess we'll get into this movie. And so this Diamonds Are Forever from 1971. A diamond smuggling investigation leads James Bond to Las Vegas, where he uncovers an evil plot involving a rich business tycoon. Stars Sean Connery as James Bond, and what's interesting about this, John Gavin. I don't know if you know him. The guy from Psycho that played Janet Leigh's husband or boyfriend. He was almost.
I've seen it, but I don't remember.
He's a dark-haired guy, but he was almost going to be the. They picked him to be Bond, but then the producers were unhappy with this decision due to their experience with George Lazenby, who was in the previous James Bond movie on Her Majesty's Secret Service, where he was going to be in a couple or a 5 or whatever, and then all of a sudden he fucked up and was like, I don't give a shit. So then they were like, great, now we got to get somebody else. So then they were looking for somebody else to get, and then Sean Connery made it known that he would be interested in returning. So Gavin's contract was quietly bought out, and then they paid Sean Connery $1,250,000, and he gave it all to his charity, his school that he was starting this school for kids, for under, people who didn't have money and stuff. So he gave all that money to them, and plus he made a deal for 2 more films, and they only ended up making 1 more movie, and it was called The Offense with a OFFENCE, and so it was really interesting. I really liked that, he had. That he did that it was all for charity. So that was cool. And then it stars Jill St. John as Tiffany Case, Charles Gray as Ernest Stavro Blofeld, Lana Wood as Plenty O'Toole, Jimmy Dean as Willard White, Norman Burton as Felix Leiter, Bruce Glover, who, I don't know if you knew this, father of Crispin Glover, as Mr. Wint, Putter Smith as Mr. Kidd. So he's a darker-haired guy, Mr. Wint, Mr. Kidd.
Oh,
so,
yeah. Okay.
When you see him, you go, he does look like he could be Crispin Glover's father. And then Bernard Lee is M, Lois Maxwell is Miss Moneypenny, and Desmond Llewellyn is Q. And written by Ian Fleming, of course, wrote the book. Screenplay by Richard Maybaum and Tom Mankiewicz, who writes a lot of good stuff. And directed by Guy Hamilton.
Okay.
So when I saw this movie, before we get into discussing it, when I used to be like, and like I even told you, you were like, let's do Diamonds Are Forever. I was like, the second worst Bond film ever. And you were like, holy shit. So, Die Another Day is the worst. And then Diamonds Are Forever was the second. And then I watch it this time, and either because I'm watching it so intently and I'm making notes, I really enjoyed it. It moved up in my list of Bond films. I really like it. I really enjoyed watching it this time. So
yeah, absolutely.
It was really neat. So,
yeah, I rewatched it, in the last couple of days, and I had the same. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I loved the style of it, and just the time capsule back to what would have been stylish, in the early '70s or whatever, and how cutting edge, but at the same time, kind of comedic in ways too. The things that were considered like cutting edge, the technology they'd try to work in. Yeah. Sometimes it was really cool. Other times it was kind of, looking back at it, they took it so seriously. And that was something I was going to ask you. I don't mean to get ahead, but
no problem.
Is some of it meant to be kind of funny?
Yeah. I mean, they're
cheat a little bit. I mean,
yeah,
because like to be,
yeah, because you were telling me before that because we forgot to say this, you haven't seen all of the James Bond movies, and you're not a big fan. You like them, but you're not a big fan where you're hunting them out. But yeah, they're a little tongue in cheek, and they get more tongue in cheek as they go into the Roger Moore stuff. Then he's more funny. Sean Connery's more kind of hard edge.
Yeah,
but in this one, he's
slapping
more
people around looking for information.
yeah, well,
women included.
Yeah, it was the '60s and '70s. Yeah. There was on the last one on Her Majesty's Secret Service. He's like, why weren't you in your room? And then George Lazenby slaps her because she won't answer him. It's like, Jesus Christ. And then Bond just pushing himself on all these ladies in Goldfinger. He's basically rapes this girl who's like, I'm a lesbian. I have no interest in you. And he starts trying to kiss her, and she's trying to push him away. Anyway, then it's kind of funny. Now it's like, oof. But yeah, they're kind of, tongue in cheek, kind of cheesy. we'll get to later, but when he's running, they got those people training to land on the moon, and they're moving really slow, and he runs by them, and they can't stop him because they're moving so slow. Like, that was just like silliness. But yeah, so they're made, they're made that way. And go ahead.
The little tunnel and the robot that's just the right size for that tunnel is coming through for some reason. He has to get out of the way.
Well, and some of that is also that, they'll reverse engineer certain scenes. So I think with that, they were like, how does Bond get out, And then they were like, oh, we can have this robot that looks like it's going to kill him or shock him or do something. Why ever this robot is cleaning a pipe that it didn't even look to be cleaning or cutting or doing anything. And then all of a sudden Bond can ride on it, though, and then, come out of the top or whatever. So yeah, some of that is, some of that as you look at, like, my wife will go, why did that movie do that? And I go, well, if they didn't do that, there'd be no movie, So some things, in movies normally are like, why do we need to know that? Well, because then, blah, blah, blah. But
here's the thing. And I appreciate the fact that they wanted to make sure, and I was going to say this too.
Yeah.
That this is kind of like a precursor to what we grew up with as what we consider blockbusters.
Yeah.
And, I appreciate that they tried to pack as much kind of spectacle in there as they could, as much action, as much comedy,
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on in this movie,
Well, and that's where they were talking about, because every film did better than the last. So when they made Dr. No, it cost like $1 million. Then when they made From Russia with Love, it cost $2 million. When they made Goldfinger, it cost $3 million. And as they kept going, they kept spending more money and trying to make them bigger than the last.
Right. So that's kind of what that's the blockbuster mentality.
Yeah. And Bond was
the last one.
And it was big back then. For one, you got Sean Connery coming back as James Bond, where it was hard to fill his shoes with somebody else. And so that was a big thing. And just the over the topness sometimes of Bond. And then even like in the later ones, like Bond has a laser watch, and and what I did like, the only good thing about Die Another Day, not to jump way ahead, but Die Another Day had a scene where I always hated in the Bond films, he gets something given to him that he's going to happen to need when he's on a mission during that, that he's sent on that mission. He just happens to need this exact thing. On Diamonds Are Forever, he's driving the car. On Die Another Day, he's driving the car in the ice against that Jaguar. The car flips over. He hits some kind of ice pack, blows up, and flips over on his roof. And he's sliding on his roof. Now, how's he going to flip his car back over? He opens the ejector, he opens the roof, hits the ejector seat, and that flips his car back over on its wheels. So as a Bond moment, you're like fucking badass, and that you're like, oh, he didn't just happen to get somebody in the car to eject out of the, this was actually, he improvised and made it work. So,
right.
But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But some of these facts are, during the making of this film, everyone lived in Vegas, and they said that everyone would be out late gambling or whatnot. Like, they'd be like, hello, we're supposed to film. So, and then in the...
Yeah, I read I read a quote today from Sean Connery that he said that they shot at night, and then he spent the days playing golf and whatever else, the stuff you were talking about.
Yeah.
And so there was never any time for sleeping.
Yeah.
And he said that at the end of it all, he said on the weekends he would crash incredibly hard. I guess they had the weekends off or something.
Yeah.
So.
Goodness. No, that's crazy. That's like, my dad had this theory, on a total side note, not even about Bond. My dad had watched an interview with Michael J. Fox talking about making like the Back to the Future movies, and saying how he didn't get much sleep and he was up all night and, all this stuff. And my dad said, I wonder if that messed with his brain, kind of helped that, I can't think of his disease, but helped that manifest itself.
Parkinson's, right?
Yeah. Like maybe it wouldn't have manifested itself as much if he would have slept normal or something, you know. But
Well, I think what was happening was he had, again, that same thing where it was Back to the Future at
yeah,
night,
yeah, two
uh,
and three were filmed
family
together. Yeah,
ties, during the day.
yeah, exactly.
So,
Yeah,
but when
that's
you're that age and you put yourself in his shoes, if you were Michael J. Fox and they wanted you to do those things and you were his age,
yeah,
you'd probably do it too, and it'd be mostly a really good time, but just incredibly taxing on
yeah,
your body, I guess.
yeah, exactly. Well, that's the same thing. Just being an actor in general, where Robert De Niro gain weight, lose weight, gain weight, back in the day, and it's like, and you could see that too. Yeah, I'll do it, but then later you go, this really fucked up my body. But anyway, back
Yeah.
to back to James Bond.
Well, yeah. Well,
Um,
yeah.
so in the book, the bad guy is Goldfinger's twin brother. So Goldfinger was the third film, and then he was going to be his twin brother, and that would have been cool. I haven't read the book. I read a couple of the books, but that sounds cool. I wish they would have done that. Excuse me, with this movie. And the series producers originally intended Diamonds Are Forever as an extensive reboot of the Bond franchise to appeal to an American audience. And this is what you were kind of talking about too, and that's why they put it in Vegas and all that instead of somewhere else and instead of British things. But something that you said about about the bad guy that we're going to get into the beginning of this film, but no reference is made to Tracy Bond at all through the film, despite her death immediately prior being such an important moment in Bond's life. In fact, owing the film's opening scene taking place in Japan, it has been suggested by some that Diamonds Are Forever is actually intended as a direct sequel to You Only Live Twice, completely ignoring the events of On Her Majesty's Secret Service. However, the presence of Bond's Aston Martin DB5 in Q's lab appears to contradict this theory. But then I read that Q scene was filmed in the Aston Martin factory. So they just had Q, on the phone at the Aston Martin factory. That's why you got a bunch of cars behind him. But for you who don't know, on Her Majesty's Secret Service right before this, Bond got married, and he gets married at the end of the film. He retires. They're driving off together. He had defeated Blofeld, and but he didn't capture him. So Blofeld's just gone. They don't know where he is, and this evil girl named Irma Bunt, and all of a sudden they pull over to take the flowers off of their car, and he's talking to her while he's pulling the flowers off, talking to his wife Tracy. And all of a sudden this car drives by and does a drive-by shooting at his car. And so he jumps in, he goes, oh, it's Blofeld. And then he gets in the car, and she's dead. She got shot in the forehead through the front windshield. And so then all of a sudden he just holds her, and he's like, we have all the time in the world. And it's a real sad moment. And now you're like, holy shit. So you're waiting for the next Bond film. I've seen them all either out of order, but then seen them recently. I've seen them all together and in order. But imagine now in 1969, you see On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and you're like, oh shit, is Bond's going to be pissed now? His revenge is going to be crazy. And then you watch Diamonds Are Forever, and it starts with him hunting Blofeld. So you're like, oh shit, what's he going to do? But he doesn't say this for my wife, nothing. So it's like, come on, so that's stuff where sometimes in the way of like
the explanation for that.
Yeah, there was not. That was just like what I said. Like people think that this might have been a direct sequel to the movie before On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which was You Only Live Twice.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But it's just weird. They don't touch back on Tracy Bond until For Your Eyes Only. And then Roger Moore gets his revenge. Roger Moore's James Bond gets revenge on Blofeld. So, but that was all legal stuff. Where after this movie, I don't think they could bring up Blofeld until For Your Eyes Only or something. But
when they did bring him back, was it Charles Gray again?
No, it was. That's what was weird. So with these movies, because they either choose from this, they have somebody doing the casting and they'll pick the same actors. So Charles Gray played a good guy, Henderson, in You Only Live Twice. And then in the very next movie, or in 2 movies later, he's playing Blofeld. So you're like, wait a minute, he was a good guy earlier. So, that's why they say don't take these Bond films as like in an order, because you don't really have to follow a story until, then the Daniel Craig ones more had a story of, Casino Royale led into Quantum of Solace and kind of went in, and they all kind of were connected. But they're more just like an individual thing, and But it was originally proposed for the previous film on Her Majesty's Secret Service to end before it does in its book form. The film would end with Bond and Tracy driving off after their wedding, and then the already filmed sequence of Bond and Tracy pulling over only to be shot by Blofeld and Irma Bunt would provide the pre-title sequence for Diamonds Are Forever. The idea was dropped prior to the theatrical release of On Her Majesty's Secret Service, possibly because George Lazenby had yet to commit to any more films. So they can't do that pre-credit sequence with George Lazenby and then start the film with, Sean Connery. So they were like, no, we'll just put it all into this one film. So, but it was really good. But now we'll get into the movie, and then I got Fact Splinter in there, and you can stop me whenever. It opens in Japan. A man is thrown through a paper wall. Bond is beating him up and asking where Blofeld is. The man tells him Cairo. Then we are in Cairo. Bond punches a guy and asks him where Blofeld is. He says, ask Maria. Bond asks her, and she tells him. And what I liked was that thing that he did with her top, like he undid her bikini, but then undid it in the back, and then flipped it around so her hands were like, she was kind of trapped by her hands, and then kind of tried to, in a way, like choke her or whatever to get the info. And then we see Blofeld is trying to change his face, and there's a man in a vat of liquid, and we think it's Blofeld. Bond is snuck in and is coming after the man in the liquid. The man raises a gun out of the liquid. Bond sees it and runs over and pulls a rope and pours more liquid on the guy. And a fact on here was the man who drowns in the mud bath was played by stuntman Max Latimer. The mud was actually bucket loads of mashed potatoes. Latimer had to hold his breath as he submerged under the substance each time. As the studio lamps were very hot, the mashed potato mixture started to cook due to the filming taking a long time, by the end of which it started to smell horrible. So, yeah, it's like, ugh. And then Blofeld arrives with his 2 henchmen. They have Bond drop his gun. They head over to search him. And when they reach in his pocket, they got like those mouse traps, but they got razors on them or something. Cut that guy's hand.
Yeah.
He beats, and so that's a cheesy thing, or somebody was like, how about this thing if they're searching your pockets? And somebody goes, oh, that's funny. He stabs one with several scalpels, then knocks Blofeld out, and then Bond straps Blofeld to a gurney and pushes him into a vat of scalding hot lava type stuff. He says, welcome to hell, Blofeld. And now the title sequence starts, and Diamonds Are Forever, sang by Shirley Bassey. So,
Which is really good.
It's a really good song. She did the Goldfinger theme, and she did Diamonds Are Forever theme, and did really good. And then this part was kind of cool. Bond meeting with M, and they're having sherry, and he's like, "Oh, this tastes like a 51," and they're like, "There's no year on sherry, Bond," and he's like, "No, I mean the region from where the the wine was picked, blah, 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 1851. And they're like, okay. I'm like, Jesus, come on. It's like I talked on the last one where sometimes you can be too much of a guy who knows everything, where you're just like, you're just a dickhead. Like, stop it. So, but then they talk about diamonds, and then you see the workers smuggling the diamonds. Then we see Mr. Kidd and Mr. Wint in the desert. So those workers that were smuggling diamonds, you see them go to the dentist, and he pulls their teeth, and they all have diamonds in their teeth. And Mr. Kidd and Mr. Wint are in the desert, and they have a scorpion, and they are meeting with a guy. And so Mr. Kidd was originally going to be Putter, and Mr. Wint was going to be Paul Williams. I don't know if you know Paul Williams he was in Baby Driver. He's the guy that tried to sell them the guns, and he was in Smokey and the Bandit, and he's a musician.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So So it was going to be him, and then they chose Putter and Glover. So, which I think Paul Williams would have been a good choice too. But I like later on in Smokey and the Bandit, you had him and that other guy, and they made a good, Paul Williams and that guy make a good odd couple.
Sure. Was this their first appearance, Kid and Win?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I really like them, but yeah, this was their first appearance. The one they are meeting is a dentist. They receive diamonds. They kill him with a scorpion. So they were going to shove it in his mouth, and then when they did it, I guess they thought that was too violent, so they said, "Let's just drop it down the back of his shirt."
Yeah,
so
which was still pretty evil and creepy.
Yeah. So they kill him with a scorpion. Then a helicopter lands, and they give the helicopter the box of diamonds, and then the helicopter explodes. But they gave them a decoy, of course, and then they skip off holding hands. So the whole thing, I don't know if you got it, but they're a gay couple.
Yeah. I caught the quote about, there was a quote on the plane or something. Yeah.
Because he said I forget. Yeah.
Basically, to the extent of not as good as a man would be, or something.
Yeah. She's okay for a woman. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, that kind of thing, yeah.
Now back with M, talking about Peter Franks, a diamond smuggler. Then we see a woman teaching a class in English. Then she is told that someone is waiting for her. It's Kid and Wint, and they give her the diamonds from before. She thanks them. And then it goes back to M, and he tells Bond that he is going to help on this case. We now see Peter Franks arrive in his car to a customs area. He is asked by security to go inside the building. He goes inside. Now we see Moneypenny come out of the building, so that's the secretary of M who works with Bond all the time. And now Bond
is the name.
Okay, yeah. And now Bond is in Peter Frank's car. She hands him his paperwork and says something like, "Have a safe trip." He says, "Can I get you anything?" She says, "Yeah, a diamond." He looks surprised a bit. He says, "Well, you'll settle for tulips," and he drives off. Now we see the old woman that was teaching English being pulled out of the water. She's dead. Bond now pulls up to an apartment building, and he pushes a button for a tea case. He says, "Franks, Peter Franks." And what I got out of this was, so no matter what his disguise is, he still introduces, that's his Bond, James Bond. Like if he were playing me, he'd say Duke, Philip Duke, It's just the way he says names. So it's just kind of funny. She buzzes him in. We see that he had to take an elevator, and her name is Tiffany Case because she was born on the top floor of Tiffany's. She talks to him and then grabs his drink, and he has already made, or she has already made, I guess. She says that she will put more ice in it for him. She goes in her bedroom and dusts his glass. Then she inputs it into a computer and wipes the glass down. She brings him the glass back. Then she goes back into her room to put on more clothes. She then prints out his fingerprints and puts them into another computer that is in her closet. It's like way too much. Like
closet computer was where I was like, this can't be serious.
Yeah. We now see him smelling his glass and holding it up to the light. He laughs a little. She comes back in and tells him that everything is set and he will be paid $50,000 for smuggling diamonds into Los Angeles. He agrees, but is a bit surprised, of course. So what I liked about this, there were two things. First of all, that's why then all the Austin Powers movies make fun of all the Bond stuff, because it's kind of over the top.
I can see that, now.
But also trying to be state of the art where people can go, wow, that's cool. But also to make it a little more believable where it's kind of a big computer thing. But on the other end of that, if you were to be like, okay, I buy all that, what I did like was she thinks she's being sneaky. He can smell the fingerprint dust on the glass. So he knows what she did, even though she wiped it off. He can tell because he holds the glass up to the window. And then later when he tells Q that thing worked, and he's back in his hotel room and he's peeling off his fingerprints and telling him how clever it is. And Q says, "Oh, and Peter Franks has escaped. He killed a guard." Then he says, "Hello, Bond?" And Bond's gone. Cut to Bond's hotel room, and there's nobody there, which I thought was funny because it's one of those, you know, it's like, oh yeah, he escaped, and all of a sudden, wait, where'd he go? Because he's fucking worried, and then Q hangs up, and now we see Peter Franks walking to Tiffany's apartment, and Bond is acting like he is making out with a girl, where he does that thing that we did as kids, where he's hugging himself, and he's like, moving his arms all around, and he now follows Franks to Tiffany's apartment. And this part I like too. This was where Peter has already called her on the intercom, and Bond acts like he is German and enters with Peter Franks. And they get in the elevator, and Bond goes to throw a punch, but the elevator's too small, and he breaks that glass with his elbow.
Yeah.
And then he and Franks have this cool fight in the elevator, and Tiffany comes out to see the end of the fight. Bond throws a guy over the banister, and he falls to his death. But there's that part where he sprays him with the fire extinguisher, and so cool. And then Bond switches wallets with him quickly while she's not looking, and then drags him inside Tiffany's apartment. And she asks, "Who is he?" He says, "I don't know. He's been following me all day." She reaches in his jacket and retrieves a wallet, pulls out a card, and it is a Playboy card and Playboy Casino card, and has the name James Bond on it. She says, "My God, you just killed James Bond." He says, "Well, it just goes to show you that no one is indestructible." She says that they need to leave and get the diamonds out of there. He says, where are they? Where are the diamonds? She shows him that they're in the chandelier, and he says that they will let Bond carry the load. Yeah, so meaning that they're going to put the diamonds into the guy that he killed, which is actually Peter Franks, carry the load. And now we see the body being loaded on a plane, and Bond and Tiffany flying with other passengers. And behind a curtain, this is the part we were talking about, we see Kid and Wint are on the plane too. One of them says, "Miss Case is pretty attractive for a woman, I mean." And like I said, and then I wrote here, they are gay, but nobody, but they don't really say it. Now Bond and them have landed, and Bond has to talk to customs in L.A. There's a man by the coffin as Bond approaches. Another worker comes out and says, "Why don't you take a break, Jerry?" The man opens a casket and asks for the death certificate. The man is Felix Leiter. So this guy has been in Bond films before. He's a CIA operative who was in Dr. No, and he was in Goldfinger, and he was in Thunderball, and then he was in this one. And he's always played by different actors, except for later on they bring the same actor back. And then Jeffrey Wright plays him in the new films. So he's like James Bond, but in America, and not as cool. But anyway, 3 men are waiting for Bond with a hearse, and one of the men is Sid Haig. And this is where I told everybody on my opening thing that I made a mistake last time on the last show. I said, "Oh yeah, Sid Haig, was one of the guys that grabbed George Lazenby." But no, he was grabbed by 3 guys in that film, but this was 3 other guys, and it was Sid Haig. So, Sid Haig from, Devil's Rejects and all that. So he's so he was one of those 3 bad guys. He's the one that says, "He's my brother," "Yeah, I got a brother." That one that's in the back seat.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yes.
Bond and them. Yeah. Bond and them and the body are in the hearse, and they're heading to a mortuary. And Bond arrives, and they cremate the body, and then are going to give him the urn. Bond goes in the back, and they give him the urn, and it's full of diamonds. They say that they will leave him alone, although the mortician has a certain look on his face, like he's looking like you're like, "Don't trust that guy." And then Bond walks to where he would normally put the urn in, like this little thing. I don't know. There's a curtain there. And on that video you sent me, a guy went to that funeral home. And and as he does, he passes Kid and Wint. He then finds an envelope, and he puts the urn down and grabs the envelope, and then is hit over the head and by the urn, I think, or something, and knocked out. And Kid and Wint take him away, and one of the 3 men from before pick up the urn. Now Bond is in a coffin. This part's like weird.
Yeah.
Bond is in a coffin. Kid and Wint are getting ready to cremate him. They push all the buttons, and he is sent in. They go ahead and leave, and Connery's final scene to be filmed, his last in an official Eon-produced Bond film, was the crematorium sequence. somewhat fitting because it was filmed on Friday the 13th, 1971, but also that was his final filming of that movie, was him being, James Bond being burned up and him being done. So
Yeah, that's nice.
because when he did Never Say Never Again, that's not an official James Bond movie. So,
okay.
by the other, it's a James Bond movie, but it's not an Ian produced James Bond movie. But anyway, now, so then what was kind of that I hate, because they had this in another Bond film, was that thing where it's getting tense and you're supposed to be like, oh my God, what's he going to do? And then all of a sudden it cuts to them opening it up. Now he's outside. Now he's been pulled out of the crematorium. Yeah. And it's like, he would have felt himself move. He would have, the fire would have been turned off, whatever. So, but anyway, but it's a Bond film, so we're here to have fun. And now Bond wakes up and is trying to push. So he's inside trying to push and figure out stuff. And the music swells, suddenly stops when the casket is open and the men who picked up the urn. He says that the diamonds are phonies. They're phonies. Bond tells them that they will get the real diamonds as soon as they give him the real money. He then walks off and heads to a hotel. So that's one where you're just like, it's one of those. The thing about James Bond is just he's cool under pressure, and he's just, whether he's really freaking out, he's just like calm and cool,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
And
we don't have characters like that today. And I will interject as the Vegas historian here. He was headed off to the Tropicana Hotel, which still exists at Tropicana in Las Vegas Boulevard.
Cool. Yeah.
So that was his, I guess, first hotel room before they went to the White House.
Right. Yeah. And he's in a bathtub, and they got the little thing where he's like reading a magazine and talking to Felix on the phone. Yeah. And telling him that he will need to bring him the real diamonds immediately. Felix says that he will. Felix tells Bond to relax for the evening. Bond is now at one of the casinos, and there's a comedian on stage, and when he is done with his act, he goes to his dressing room. And this part is where I kind of get it, but I kind of didn't. Like, I'm also almost watching it for the first time. So Kid and Wint show up. They end up killing him, and another man comes up as they are by the dressing room door leaving. He says, "Don't go in there. Leave him alone. We don't have the diamonds yet." Bond arrives backstage and finds the guy dead. So now you're like, oh, fuck, they weren't supposed to mess with the guy. We are now at a craps table. We see a woman with a man. He has lost his money and says, "Let's go back to my place." She says, "You're nice, but no thanks." Then as she is walking away, she hears Bond ask for $10,000 credit limit. Bond shows the pit boss the slumber envelope, or I wrote it. It corrected my spelling, but anyway, shows him that envelope. They give him the credit. Now the woman is by Bond. She says that her name is Plenty O'Toole. She's Lana Wood, so she's Natalie Wood's sister in real life, and she's helping.
Well, I liked her.
She's helping Bond. Well, of course,
I wish she had been in it a little bit more. Actually,
her bodacious boobies is what you liked.
No, I just like, I don't
know. No, she was fun and like
fun.
Yeah. Now we see the pit boss call up to talk to Willard White, the Howard Hughes type guy, and says that that Tree is dead, the old man, and that Peter Franks is gambling. The Western accented White says that he just wants the diamonds. We only see this man's arm. So the thing, like, he's wearing gray, so it's like Blofeld always wears gray usually. Not always, but anyway. Bond wins and gives the dealers money and Plenty O'Toole some money. She asks if he wants company. They are now entering his room, and he is kissing her and unzips and takes off her dress. She says, "Hang on a minute," and runs to the restroom or whatever. He then goes to a table to turn on a lamp. This part I love. When he turns the lamp on, there's that old man that called the diamonds phonies, and the two other guys. Bond says, "You caught me with more than my hands up." Then Plenty comes out in only underwear, holding her arms over her breast, and says, "Hey, what is this, some pervert convention?" Two of the men grab her and carry her to the open window and throw her out of it. She lands in the pool, and Bond sees this. He says, "Exceptionally fine shot." the older of the three men says, "I didn't even know there was a pool down there." It's like, holy shit.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah. And of course, I don't know when this rule came into effect, but where you can't open the windows in Vegas, because if you lost money, you try to kill yourself.
I did. Yes, I did. I don't know, but I did notice that. How that wouldn't really be possible today.
Yeah.
There may be one or two. The Cosmopolitan has terrace rooms. It's at one of the newest hotels.
Yeah.
And you can go on the terrace, and if you'd like, you can climb over the railing and jump off. I don't know if they've ever had anyone do that in the couple of years they've been open.
That Cosmopolitan has a nice bar down on the first floor, with the.
Oh yeah, it's like a multi-level bar, actually.
And it's got the women in the cages, right, and stuff really cool looking.
Okay,
is
you're
that the
talking
one?
about that one. Okay,
is that the one? I don't know.
There's
one right on the strip. We were walking by it a couple times, and I was like, "That's a really cool looking bar," but I bet it's expensive. But
no, I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
maybe
they also have another bar that's it feels kind of like the design is almost like a tree house or something, and it's multi-story, but everything's glass.
Right. That's
what I thought you were.
Yeah. Well, I remember this first floor. I'm not sure, but it was all glass. I remember I was like, "Oh, it's a Cosmopolitan." Mm-hmm. It might have been a couple stories, but also my wife took me to, was it the Aria, wherever it was. She said these girls come by, where it's that bar where you're in and the girls go by in these trapeze or something across the top, they're holding on to something. And but it only happens
circus
once or twice. Well, no, this was more it's a track along the ceiling, and the girls are brought across it. My wife's like, "It's really cool." She's like, "But I guess we missed it." She wanted to bring me in there to see it, but it had already happened or something at 8 o'clock or whatever. But anyway, okay, where was I? I didn't know there was a pool down there. Bond elbows the old man in the stomach. Then he says that he figures they want the diamonds. They slowly start backing out of the room. Bond then heads into the bedroom to see Tiffany Case. She says that she wants to talk. He gets undressed and gets in bed with her. And now they're in bed after. She says that he is not giving her the diamonds, is he? She says that they will not let him get away with it. She tells him that she will get the diamonds and he can get the car. Then, of course, she asks where she gets the diamonds. He asks her, when was the last time that you went to the circus? And now we go to Circus. And what's funny with this is Bond will do this in a way in these movies where he's sleeping with these women and they try to get the better of him, but he's smart enough to know that he can have sex with them, but also they didn't get him, So with her, where he's like, "Sure, I'll go get the car, you go get the diamonds." She has no idea that he has Felix and the whole CIA group to keep an eye on her. So, kind of cool. Because she's just thinking, "I'll get the diamonds, I'll fucking leave." Now we're at Circus, and they are watching her. They have several agents in the casino watching her. Bond says, "Don't lose her." He then heads to get the car. Felix says that she won't show. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Felix says she's not going to show, to come and meet you at the car. Bond says that his charm will make her show. She is playing blackjack, but her card says, "Why don't you play the water balloons?" She then heads to the water balloon game and sprays the gun at the clown, but is nowhere close, and the balloon fills up with air and pops. She wins a stuffed dog. Now she is walking with the stuffed dog and notices that two men are following her. She goes into a freak show named Zambora. Now this part's interesting. The Jay Sarno, owner of the circus scene in this film, insisted that he be allowed to display the scene featuring the Zambora attraction in exchange for letting them use his circus as a set. He also plays a minor role in the film. So I think he's the one in the beginning. "Welcome to Zambora," He starts his transformation thing. And this is what's funny about back then in the day, but even back in the 50s and before that, just circuses in general, where that transformation thing he does with that woman is all with mirrors, and everybody's, everybody buys it. They're like, "Oh my God." And then they all run out, and she runs further back through the back doors, and the two guys lose her.
Mm-hmm.
And Felix shows up to Bond's rental car and asks if he has seen her yet. Bond says, "Don't tell me you lost her, Felix. Don't tell me you lost her." Felix says, "We lost her." Now we see Tiffany walking out of the back door of a house, and this part's really cool, and into the backyard by the pool. Bond is waiting for her. Bond says, "Nice place you have here. Take something off, enjoy the sun." She is upset with him. Then she asks why her black wig is in the pool, and we see a dark-haired woman. Now, do you know if that was Plenty O'Toole or if that was just another woman that they killed?
I think it was another woman.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. And waits around her ankles. She's dead. Bond tells her that Berlanti killed the woman because they thought it was her. He says that they are taking care of the pipeline. He says the dentist is dead in South Africa, the little old lady in Amsterdam. Shady got his last night, and they tried to kill him twice. He then asks, "Who's your connection?" She says, "You sound like a cop to me." He slaps her. That's what you were talking about. He asks again, more stern, "Who's your connection?" She says that all she knows is voices on a phone. Then he asks her where the stuff is. Now we see a porter taking something out of an airport locker and carrying it to a van at the front drive, and he puts it inside the van. The driver gives him a tip. Bond follows the van. The van pulls to a gas station. He and Tiffany watch. They see that it is Willard White's assistant. She then explains to Bond that Willard White lives in the penthouse of this hotel called the White House, a real Howard Hughes type. He was actually alive while they made this film, is one of my facts. She says that he hasn't been out of there in 3 years. The man is now getting back in the van, and Bond gets out of the car and asks her to stall him. She drives the car over and stops right in front of him and asks the gas station attendant where her stamps are, which you would get these stamps like, I forget what they're called, like green stamps. Or
the
whatever.
Gas stamps.
Yeah. And he says, "You need to get gas first." She says, "Then fill it up." He says, "Well, back it up." Another man is honking his horn. She's yelling now at all of them. And you see, and what's cool is they don't show it. They didn't cut to Bond opening that back door and climbing in. You just see the shadow getting into the back of the van. So I thought that was really cool. And and then the gas attendant starts to give her gas, and she says, "Forget it. I want it high test anyway," and drives away. And the van shows up in some secret military type base. The guard says, "Go ahead, Professor." The man pulls his van up to a keypad and then punches in some numbers, and the van starts to go down, like in this elevator. And we can tell that it's like, I don't know how far it went down, but when he gets to the bottom, he parks the van and gets out with the package. He goes up to the door that has restricted written on it and pulls out a key card and uses it, and the door opens, and the man steps inside, and the door closes. Bond is watching from the back of the van. Now, this part I really love. Now, a man in a lab coat with a clipboard is walking up to the door. The man inserts his key card, pulls it out, and then Bond walks up and says hello and pretends to put his card in the slot just as the door is open.
Yeah.
Bond says, "I haven't seen you here before." The man says, "I'm Klaus Hirschenheimer." Bond says, "Ah, new here." The man says, "No, I've been here for 3 years. G section." Bond says, "Oh, how are things in G section?" Then he runs through the door because the door opens, and the man runs with him. The man says, "Still the same, checking radiation shields and replacing them." The man then says, "By the way, where's yours?" Bond says, "I've been waiting a couple of days for you to give me one." Then the man goes ahead and gives him one. And I just like how Bond does that in some of these films where he'll play like he's somebody else. And so he's got to kind of blend in, and just that little, it's the confidence of it. It's like I explained before about the Steven Spielberg thing of like he went with a clipboard and just, walked onto the Universal lot when he was young and was like just walking around. Nobody asked him questions because he looked like he knew what he was doing. He had a clipboard. So
they almost pay tribute to that, and like if you think about Eddie Murphy in Beverly Hills Cop, and he had that same confidence. And there's even a scene where he walks into a warehouse and he pretends like he's an inspector. And he's got all the security guards freaked out now because they're not doing what he wants. And
that one guy's like, "That's not my Porsche. I don't know whose it is." And he's like, "We're gonna start with this one right here," and you're like, "Oh shit." So I just watched that recently again. Oh, so good. My wife and I bought all three. Came in like a group pack in the Blu-ray. So
nice.
Anyway, Bond is looking through the window to where that guy went. I'm sorry that I'm reading like blah blah blah, but Bond then walks in. Now he is wearing a lab coat and carrying a clipboard. He sees the stuffed dog with the diamonds in it. The professor says, "Who are you?" Bond says, "Klaus Hergensheimer. I am checking radiation shields." Bond then says, "And you are?" The man's very upset with Bond. The man gets a call from Willard White. Then Bond leaves. Now the real Klaus shows up. And then I tell a story about Spielberg, which I already said. And then, sorry, I wrote that. Wow, that was a big old thing. Yeah, so with confidence, there's nothing you can't accomplish. Like, the right amount of confidence.
Yeah, it's true.
Now we see some spacemen walking on the moon, but it's some kind of training, and Bond is hiding and watching, and they are moving slowly. And this part coming up, like I said, is ridiculous that we talked about already, where suddenly the alarm goes off, and a guard comes in and says, "There he is." And Bond runs past the astronauts, but they can't stop him because they're moving in slow motion. And it's like, you're not in space, just get the guy. Like, hurry up. And then Bond jump. And here's the part that I used to hate, but now I'm like, it's okay. It's a moon buggy. Like, he's got to get away. So he jumps in that moon buggy and takes off. It's ridiculous looking. He bursts right through the wall and out the front gate. And now they are driving through the desert. And this large sedan is having a problem, but not the moon buggy, because it can't drive through all the terrain like that, like the buggy can. Then these ATCs, which, remember, those used to be legal, but then they flipped over so easy that then they said, no, now we can only have ATVs. The ATCs were the three-wheelers. And that goes after him, and all the big sedans crash, and Bond is cruising along. Suddenly a guy crashes his ATV, and the other two continue after Bond in the moon buggy. But suddenly he raises up from behind him, and before the bad guy can get his ATC started, Bond beats him up and steals the ATC. Now we see that nobody's in the moon buggy, in case you didn't realize that. Tiffany sees Bond coming her way on the ATC. And this is a really cool moment that I love. Like, he's driving that ATC pretty much as fast as it can go, and he just steps off of it and lets it keep going. Like, it's really neat. I really like that. Then as they are driving away in the Mach 1, the Mustang, some of the guards call the police to have them arrested. Now it's nighttime, your favorite part, where it takes place in Vegas now, finally, full on. Now it's nighttime, and Bond and Tiffany are driving along, and she's upset. Bond says that Felix will fix everything. Just send a couple cops sitting in their patrol car, see Bond and her. They pull him over for whatever, and she mockingly says to Bond, "But I have friends, and they'll fix everything." Bond says, "Yeah, but don't." Anyway, "I have friends, and they'll fix this." And he says, "Yeah, but so does Willard White." Before the cop can approach on foot, Bond hits the gas and takes off. And there's a cool chase scene, even though it's cheesy for 1971, but still cool. The sheriff's chasing him. Bond tells her to lean over. This part I fucking hate. This is a big part that I hate in this movie. Bond tells her to lean over and then drives up a ramp and now has the car on two wheels on the passenger side for us in America. So he's driving on the wheels on the passenger side. Then the cop car tries but flips over onto its top. Then Bond,
I was thinking, there was a couple moments like that where I was thinking what the general public would believe was normal.
Yeah.
And that was done as like, wow, look at this trick,
this tricked rider drove between these two buildings, driving on two wheels. And it's like all the car stuff that they were doing in the 70s was like, way cool. But then when they're in the middle of that little tunnel, that little between the two buildings on two wheels, then all of a sudden Bond has her. There's this weird thing with the camera. It's still on the passenger wheels, but suddenly the camera moves from her to Bond, and as it does, it flips. The camera moves, so now it's on the driver's side tires, and they come out of the alley, and they're on those wheels, and then they land and they take off. And the story behind this, which it's 71, so you have to understand they don't have Video Village to watch what they just did. They don't have, all they have is what they remember or whatever. So the two-wheel thing took an American team to try it. They couldn't do it right. Then a French team came in and they did it the wrong way. So Guy Hamilton said, that's fine. And they added a moment in there with that editing where the camera moved and turned so that it looked like he kind of made it turn to the other side. So Guy Hamilton, the director, was like, fuck it. The Americans can't do it. The French did it. Let's just keep with what the French did. So
Nice.
So, but yeah, there was a group of people. If you noticed on that chase, like there's people just lined up along the streets.
I did. Yeah, they were all just standing there watching.
yeah. It's like, but.
And that area, that's what's considered. Some people they think of downtown and they think of maybe the Strip, the Las Vegas Strip, but the Strip is the tourist district, and then the downtown is actually the downtown of the city, and that is the Fremont Street.
Yeah, I was going to say
which has that's where the chase goes through. Which there's Golden Nugget, and some of those hotels there are still exist today.
Yeah.
But one thing that's different is where they're having the chase in between the hotels has now been changed. It's been barricaded, and there's no cars drive through there anymore. Only pedestrian. Wow. They call it the Fremont Street Experience. They put a big dome over it that has a screen so that when you look up, there's a giant screen.
Yeah, I saw. I was watching a Tesla video. This guy that bought a Tesla, and they were looking for a supercharger that was right over there. But the supercharger was it was all blocked off by gates because it was construction, whatever. Anyway, they finally found it. Then they went to Fremont Street, and the guy's wife did the zip line. So they have a zip line all the way across there and everything. But it looked pretty cool.
Yeah.
So
you can't drive cars through there anymore. So for me, it's a little crazy because I worked at the Golden Nugget for a period of time, and I was going in the, several times a week, and so it's crazy to see cars driving in that spot where, it'd be like watching cars drive through a park.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah. And now Tiffany and Bond are in the bridal suite at the Willard White House, which is the Hilton, not the Hilton. What is that now?
The White House?
Yeah.
Well, now it's called, it's changed ownership a couple of times. And now it's called the Westgate.
Oh, yeah.
Currently. Okay. And I'm not sure who owns it.
Okay. Yeah. Because, and that's what's crazy. I'll get to in my facts later about Howard Hughes was just like, go for it, film wherever you want. Felix arrives and tells Bond that they can't do anything to Willard White until Washington says so. Felix leaves, and Bond walks outside onto the ledge, and that's that shot you had in your video of him like taking off his jacket or putting on his jacket, getting ready to go outside.
Yeah,
goes outside.
And the scene that's coming up, I read was not filmed at the Hilton Hotel.
Yeah, that was on that. Probably on that video. That guy said that it was somewhere else, and that place doesn't exist anymore. They tore that one down. And that's why when I was talking to you earlier about Ocean's 11, the beginning of Ocean's 11, can't think of the guy's name, the Mexican, Andy Garcia, they're blowing up that one other, and everybody watches the explosion, and they're watching him. That's such a cool moment. And that was like one of the real old, that's what I meant. Like, I didn't know if that was a Sands or whatever. I remember that one that they blew up was an old, old school.
Yeah, it was a
Frank
real
Sinatra,
implosion. They just used the footage.
Yeah. And
I'm not sure. It might have been Sands would make sense. I mean, not Sands. Oh, Sands or
I think Sands was smaller though. But yeah.
Or I mean, the Dunes. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe the Dunes. But yeah, it was a big one. But anyway, that's what I meant. But so then Bond walks out on a ledge and gets on the top of this elevator, but you don't know where he is. And then you see him move, and he's standing on an elevator, like in his suit. Just looks badass. And it's really Sean Connery, too. Then Bond uses a gun. I forget the name of those mountain climbers, what they're called, the spikes that they shoot into the rock. But he's got one of those. He's got a little pistol.
I wanted to say... right before that, when he gets to the top, there's this suspense moment, like there's a ceiling above, and he doesn't know if it's going to stop.
Yeah.
And the fact that that was really him, and that it was not some CGI effect or something, you could tell was really happening.
Yeah.
I felt more suspense than I normally would in that type of situation in a modern movie.
Yeah,
you know?
true. I wasn't thinking about it, but yeah, it was like like a Die Hard moment when that thing's going up and it finally stops, and Bruce Willis is like hunkered down because he doesn't know what's going to happen. But yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
And but then he's got this pistol and it's got these mountain climbing like spikes in it. He shoots it into the building and climbs up to the penthouse. So he swings over and then just starts climbing up to get to the penthouse. And he drops in through a skylight and lands on a throne that's like a toilet. It's got a lid on it. I think I looked.
Yeah.
It's got a little lid on it, so you could sit on it.
And there's toilet paper to the side of him.
Yeah. And there's all these monitors and all these phones. And then he clicks on one, and it's a camera on him. And then a voice of Willard White comes on and tells him to take his gun off, and then leads him into the living room. And Ken Adams did this. I don't know if you've seen my Instagram, but Ken Adams did all these amazing sets in the 60s and 70s through the Bond films. He also did the War Room in Don't Worry, the Doctor Strangelove. And so he does these amazing sets. So that whole set, when he goes into that living room, like that just looks really cool. And and as Bond approaches the desk, the chair turns around and we see that it's not Willard White, it's Blofeld, who we know, at least I know. Well, and you probably knew because you saw him fight earlier. And Cubby had a dream about this. So Cubby Broccoli, the producer, him and Harry Saltzman produced all these movies. And Cubby Broccoli woke up one day and told his wife, I had the weirdest dream. He said, I went to see Howard Hughes, and he said, but they called him Sam. All his friends called him Sam. He said, I went to see Howard Hughes, and he goes, and when he turned around in the chair, it wasn't Howard Hughes. And so she's like, oh, that's weird. And so then all of a sudden he was like, let's do a movie, let's make Blofeld be the guy that turns, so then they just went off on that with this story. They did a little bit of the book, but more with this kind of story. Yeah. So he says, hello, Mr. Bond. Then another Blofeld arrives. Now there's two of them. And which one is the real one? They tell him that they have the real Willard White somewhere else. Bond is walking around and talking. They tell him not to try anything. He says he wouldn't know which one to kill. He's by the couch, and one of the Blofelds is behind the desk, and one is sitting on the couch. And also Blofeld's cat is on one end of the curved couch. Bond kicks the cat at the Blofeld on the couch, and the Blofeld catches the cat. Then Bond pulls out his grappling gun and the climbing gun thing and shoots a spike into Blofeld on the couch into his forehead, killing him. The real Blofeld now has a gun on Bond. Bond now sees that there are also two cats. Like the other cat shows up with more diamonds on his neck, so now you know, that's probably the real Blofeld. Blofeld then sends Bond away on the elevator. Bond is a little apprehensive, and me too. You're like, are they going to just drop him to his death? Like, what's going to happen? Blofeld says it's just a lift, or shall I say elevator. Bond gets on, and Blofeld tells him the lobby starts with an L and to push it. He does. The doors close. Bond waits. He hears a noise, thinking the floor of the elevator is going to open. He jumps his feet to the side. Nothing happens to the floor. Suddenly, gas comes out of the vents, and we hear from outside the elevator that Bond passes out. The elevator opens, and it's Mr. Kidd and Mr. Wint. They put Bond in the trunk of their car and drive. They drive down a tunnel. A large fake rock opens, and then now they are driving in the desert. They take Bond out and put him in a large pipe at a construction site. Now it is the morning, and we see construction equipment moving pipes and burying things. So now Bond wakes up, and you can tell that all the pipes have been put together, and Bond is kind of trapped. He talks to a rat a little bit. So at first I wasn't going to put this down, but it comes to play later. He talks to a rat a little bit and mentions how he smells, and then Bond realizes that it is him who smells from the cologne that one of the bad men wore. Suddenly a robotic machine starts, the one you were talking about, robotic machine starts coming down the pipe, so he starts running. He then turns around and jumps on top of it and short-circuits the thing. Now, above the ground, this part's kind of cool, just because he's in a suit and he's just coming out, and you're like, who the fuck is this guy? Now above ground, these construction guys are bitching about this machine always breaking. They're opening a hatch, and one of the guys starts to go down into the pipe, and here comes Bond climbing out in a black tuxedo. And he says, "Thank you very much. I was just out walking my rat, and I seem to have lost my way." So
Yeah.
it's like, wow. Now we see the professors calling Blofeld. Blofeld answers. Now we see that it is Bond with the same kind of voice machine that Blofeld had, and makes people think that he is Willard White, that kind of machine. Bond, as a professor, tells him that he saw Bond in the casino, and he is worried and thinks that they should move Willard White. Blofeld says, no, he is fine. He is locked up at his summer home. So now you're like, oh, you fucking fool. You just told him, you know. It's the same thing with on the Incredibles, where he's like, oh, you caught me monologuing. You know, that's like that joke, too.
Right,
all the Bond villains will tell their whole plan, then Bond will escape and foil their plan. But granted, this guy thought it was the professor. Says he locked his summer home. Felix whispers to Bond where it is. Blofeld says not to worry and that this isn't like him to panic. Bond, as a professor, says that he is just worried because Bond is so good. Blofeld tells him to go to the summer house and kill Willard White. Now Bond and Felix have cut the phone lines to the house, and Bond says to give him 5 minutes to get up the hill and 5 minutes to rescue Willard, and then the other men should attack the penthouse. Bond arrives at the house, and so I wrote on here before, then I did my research, watched the making of. I was like, is this a real house or is this something Ken Adams made? No, that's a real house. Like, it was built into the rock and all this cool stuff. And it just looks really cool. And a white woman gets out of one of the chairs and does a back handspring type thing and says, I'm Bambi. He says, hello. There's a black woman on the rocks, and she says her name is Thumper. He asks where Willard White is. They say that he is outside. Bond says that it's basically as easy as that. Thumper says, now we're going to have some fun. Then she knees Bond in the groin. Then Bambi does some flips and kicks Bond. Then Thumper kicks him. And then it's Bambi's turn again, and she swings down and kicks him. Then Thumper tries to attack him, and he knocks her down. She then throws him and Bambi. What? Oh, yeah, throws him and Bambi. Bambi starts choking him with her legs. Yeah, throws him at Bambi. She starts choking him with her legs. Then Thumper kicks him. Then Bambi and Thumper both start beating him up, and they throw him in the pool. Now he's holding both. Then they jump in the pool, and he's holding both of them underwater. And all of Felix's men come in and save the day. Then Thumper tells them where Willard White is being held, which is below the pool in like some room. But what I do like about this, even though I read that like a fucking child, is that that I always remember Bambi and Thumper, like just them, like all my life. I remember like the black girl in the yellow bikini. That you know, they just stick in my head as like those moments in films that just, you know, kind of not iconic, but things that you remember. Those two girls, you know.
Yeah.
Then they find Willard White, and here's an interesting fact. Jimmy Dean was a Grand Ole Opry star. He was actually working at the Desert Inn, that's where it was, where Howard Hughes was living and owning it. He was terrified that he was going to get fired because he was basically playing Howard Hughes. But unbeknownst by Jimmy Dean, the producers had sent Howard Hughes all the previous James Bond movies, and he let them film in his casinos and whatnot, as well as close down the strip for 5 days so they could do that chase scene.
Wow.
So I was like, wow.
Yeah, it was a pretty big, I mean, especially in that crowded downtown area. That was a pretty big chase.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was before all the other stuff popped up. So yeah, that was like your main area, and it's like, no, we close it down. And as Willard is coming out, someone shoots at him and misses. They all duck down, and the other CIA guys start shooting at the shooter. It's Professor Saxby. They kill him. Bond says, Saxby. Willard says, Saxby, tell him he's fired. I like that part. And now we see Q playing the slot machine. And Tiffany's asking if Felix said anything about her because she's really worried about fucking getting busted and going to jail. Q's using an electromagnetic ring to make all the slot machines he is playing hit jackpot. While she is talking, she notices a woman carrying a cat. This part's weird. This part I could see why you're like, is this tongue-in-cheek? Because there's Blofeld dressed as a woman. She follows him,
that too, yeah.
gets out to where the cabs are. She checks all the cabs. She leans over to look inside a black car. Sid Haig pushes her in the back seat and closes the door. Now she's in the back seat with Blofeld dressed as a woman. Now we're back in that special research facility, and Bond is showing Willard White where he saw the special satellite type thing when he was there before. It's not there. They have one of the workers call about it. They find out that the satellite has launched 24 minutes ago. While they are talking to Willard White, the thing opens and takes over its own guidance. They can't stop it. They realize it's a powerful weapon. Suddenly, a laser is shot from it and explodes a missile in North Dakota. Then it blows up a submarine. They are looking to see where Blofeld went, and Tiffany. Now the laser blows up several missiles in China. Willard tells Bond that he heard from the government that Blofeld called and is wanting ransom money. Bond is trying to figure out what it takes to control the satellite. Willard tells him that it could be like a cassette tape. And Bond is looking on a map of the floor and reading out the locations to Willard. When Bond says, Baja, California, Willard says that he doesn't have property there. Now we see an oil rig in the ocean, and Blofeld is petting his cat and talking about his plan, like they all do. Suddenly, a plane is approaching on the radar. Blofeld goes outside to see it, and something is dropped out of it, and it has 3 parachutes on it. Then it lands, and it's this weird octagonal shape, inflate balloon. It's like this octagonal balloon. And it then rolls across the water to the oil rig. The bad guys approach it, and it unzips, and Bond steps out of it and is brought onto the crane in a basket to meet with Blofeld. So that's just like, it's cool, but also like, why didn't you just parachute down and use a raft and swim across? But
yeah,
because it looks better.
Weird.
You know? Yeah. Blofeld says, search him from the hair on his head to the tips of his toes. Then bring him to me. Bond says, Bond sees Tiffany. She's just lying out under the sun in a lounge chair. Like, she don't give a fuck. She's just with whoever doesn't get her thrown in jail. Now Bond is in Blofeld's office. Blofeld is playing a tape of marching music. I forgot to, and I wrote this, that I forgot to mention that Bond noticed that tape before on the desk at the penthouse. And so we see that one of the shoulders of Bond's suit is ripped. So Blofeld then explains that Bond was supposed to switch the tapes. So when they searched him, they like ripped his suit and they found that tape under his suit. And I mean, that's why they ripped his suit. Tiffany walks in and Bond talks bad about her a bit. Then they all leave the office. Tiffany runs over and grabs the tape on the desk and sneaks it to Bond. One of Blofeld's men tell him that nobody has paid any money yet. Blofeld says, with only 12 minutes left, oh well. Blofeld then shows Bond the globe and where the satellite is. He decided that he will blow up Washington, D.C. Then Bond walks over to the large control panel and talks about how simple it looks. He says, and this is where the tape is? Blofeld is pretty proud and is like, yes. Then, I'm sorry, my dog's going crazy. Then Bond says, so all I have to do is, and he pushes the eject and the cassette like jumps out. Like, must have been, somebody put special springs in there to pop that tape way out. And it falls on the floor, and a guard runs over next to Blofeld, aims his gun at Bond. Blofeld says, with a serious look on his face, put it back, 007, immediately. Bond bends down to pick it up and switches the tapes with a sleight of hand. Then he puts a fake tape in. Just then, Tiffany walks in. And she has a bit of a surprised look on her face. I don't know if you noticed that. Probably not at first viewing. No. So she has this little surprised look on her face when she sees him put the tape back in. Blofeld then tells the guard to throw Bond in the brig and search him again. Bond walks up to Tiffany and calls her a bitch as he slips a real tape down the back of her bikini bottoms. He says, your problems are behind you now. Then Bond walks outside, again, another like silly. He is tying his shoe and then unties a helium balloon that is tied right by his foot. Two of the guards run over, and one shoots at the balloon, but Bond pushes him a little, and he misses. Then we see those two guards are dragging him away, and he fights them and gets loose. He runs, but another guard steps out and hits him and knocks him down. So that's one where you're like they're going to shoot at this balloon that he, that's just kind of silly. And Tiffany pushes that guard aside and leans over to Bond and says, "I switch a tape in the machine." He says, "You stupid twit, you put the real one back in." The guards then take Bond away. So that part, you're like, oh, shit. Now we see a bit further away and a helicopter with Felix and Willard and some other people in it, and they see the weather balloon. They realize that that has to be the signal, because Bond said he'd signal them, and they're like, the weather's fine. Yeah. That had to be a signal. So they call for backup. Blofeld and them are alerted that there are helicopters coming. Blofeld knows that it was a balloon. His main guy's freaking out, and Bond is locked up. The good guys start attacking. Stuff's blowing up. And what's funny about this is every day the cast and crew had to take a helicopter ride 15 minutes to get to the rig. Guy Hamilton had been an assistant director before. Guy Hamilton asked his assistant director to do a dry run of the explosions. The man misunderstood and set off all the pyrotechnics. Luckily, they got it on camera. The assistant director started to apologize, and Guy said, "I'll handle it." The man was explaining how much stress is placed on him as assistant director. Guy Hamilton said, "I was assistant director on the African Queen." So, it was like a stupid mistake. He didn't want to hear any mistake. He's like, I fucking put up with stress. Like, you could do it too, So luckily,
that reminds me of in Tropic Thunder, when the pyrotechnics get set off early, because that movie is about Hollywood, and I think it probably had some self-referential stuff in there.
Yeah, exactly.
It may not be a coincidence, is what I mean.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, it was, but yeah, luckily they caught that. Could you imagine? You got to reset everything, like how much money that cost? They have like 12 minutes while Blofeld is talking. Tiffany is trying to switch the tapes, but is caught by Blofeld. He has her taken to where Bond is. As she is being taken outside, the guard walking her gets shot and killed by one of the helicopters. Bond sees a way out of his little storage area and escapes. More firing explosions. Blofeld's guy is still freaking out. Blofeld says that he will have him shot if he continues. Blofeld then says, "Get my Bafo sub ready." Now he is outside and climbing in his one-man submarine. It is being lifted by a crane to be dropped into the water. Bond then pulls the crane driver out, takes over the controls of the crane. Bond slams him into everything. Tiffany falls off the side of the rig from shooting a machine gun. Then Bond jumps, perfect 10 dive. I don't know if you noticed that. And the whole rig explodes. And the climax of the film was changed several times during pre-production. Early drafts included a boat chase on Lake Mead that ended with Blofeld getting trapped above Hoover Dam. When the climax was relocated to an oil rig, producers planned to have scuba divers leap from the attacking helicopters, explaining the presence of frogmen on the movie's poster, and plant mines on the rig's legs to destroy it, but this too was scrapped. Originally, the oil rig finale also had Blofeld escape from the rig in his mini-sub, pursued by Bond, who would hang from a weather balloon. Bond would eventually catch up to his nemesis in a small salt mine where the two would finally fight to the death, with Blofeld falling into a rock crusher. The elimination of this entire sequence, and indeed of any death scene for Blofeld, leaves a major plot hole in the film, as Blofeld simply disappears without explanation, and a subsequent legal dispute ensured his death would not be seen until For Your Eyes Only. So that's one of those, it's these things with, you may watch a movie. Sometimes people go, "Oh, that movie, it sucks, it didn't do any good." But then you watch like the making of stuff and everything that went into it, and they didn't plan on making a bad movie. They wanted to make the best that they could or change certain things. And sometimes you go, "Oh, you should have stuck with that original stuff." I don't know how you don't watch this movie and go, "Well, what happened to Blofeld?" When you're watching the editing. When you're doing the editing, you don't go, "Where's Blofeld? What happened? We need a scene where we show him get away or something." So, But it was just kind of funny. Now Bond and Tiffany are on a cruise ship, but also on the ship are Mr. Kidd and Mr. Wint. Suddenly they show up and serve Bond some food. They have a bomb in a souffle, and one of them brings Bond a bottle of wine. The man pulls the cork off and gives it to Bond to smell. Bond says, "That's rather potent. Not the cork, your aftershave. Strong enough to bury anything." So now, you know that Bond knows, and they know that Bond, Tiffany's still like, what the fuck? The two men look at each other. Bond continues, "But the wine is quite excellent. Although for such a grand meal, I rather expected a claret." One of the bad men say, "Of course, unfortunately, our cellar is rather poorly stocked with clarets." Here's another cool Bond moment. Bond says, "Malton Rothschild is a claret." The men are nervous. Bond continues, "And I've smelt that aftershave before, and both times I smelled a rat." The other bad man lights the kebabs and comes toward Bond. The other man throws a chain around Bond's neck. The man with the flaming kebabs gets closer. Bond smashes a bottle of wine and throws the remnants at the man. That spreads a fire up his arms. Now the man is totally on fire. He jumps overboard. Tiffany picks up the souffle and throws it at the remaining bad guy. It breaks, and now her and Bond see that it was a bomb, that it has a bomb in it. Bond gets loose from the chain, spins a man around, and throws a man overboard with the bomb. The man explodes before he hits the water. She hugs Bond and asks how they get diamonds down again. How they get the diamonds down again. The end of Diamonds Are Forever. James Bond will return in Live and Let Die. So there we go. I'm sorry you didn't have much to say. I was just kept talking and talking.
Oh, it's all right. I don't want to, run. I felt like I got,
Yeah.
got some points in. I mean, I didn't want to run over on the time either.
No, I know. But did you enjoy it? Did you? I mean, it was silly. 1971,
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a mixed bag. On the one hand, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, and it's also interesting to watch and just kind of see. For me, I'm looking at the
filmmaking of 1971, or
right, and comparing that to today, and seeing like kind of the foundation of a lot of how movies are made today. Kind of this.
Well, and I think that's why also, like, when I said, "Hey, I'm doing this. Who wants to do these shows with me?" And nobody really, it was you. I got Joe Merle from Those Movie Guys. He's going to do Moonraker with me. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to do with Matt Rich from Why Daddy Drinks. He's going to do Goldfinger and Spectre with me. And then Jason Bromley will do Casino Royale. But other people are just like, "No, Bond's not for me," or "I don't want to talk about any of the old ones." Like, a lot of people just go, "Casino Royale is the best. Like, give me that, and that's it, Mm-hmm. Even my wife goes, "Oh, you're watching? What is this?" And I'm like, "It's a James Bond movie." She's like, and I know to not get her started with these, to wait until the newer ones and then have her watch those, and she'll like them,
Right.
But
makes sense.
But yeah, but I enjoyed it. But yeah, I know it's got its cheesiness, but there were some cool moments in it. But
yeah, and just like I mentioned before, the style I really appreciate, because it felt like in the olden days, style was less emphasized, but as audiences became younger, that became more important. And Bond is an example of that. And I remember even in watching Ford versus Ferrari, they talk about how important it was to get James Bond to drive a Ford.
Yeah.
Henry Ford Jr.
Yeah.
That was really important to them, because that was considered, the coolest guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's cool, like, seeing that. On the screen, and the music, the score was great. I mean, the score was kind of refreshing compared to a lot of what I hear today. It was just so it was so appropriate for the setting, I guess you could say. You know what I mean? So classic and vintage, too. So
yeah, definitely. No, that's what I enjoyed. I enjoyed about that. I enjoyed about the last one had some cool music that it just made you want to. The movie was involved skiing, but it made you want to go ski to that music in your head, So
right,
yeah. But all right, then I guess we're done. I guess I'll be back. Me and James Bond will be back for Live and Let Die. So, do you have anything to promote before I stop this recording?
No, I'm working on, I have my YouTube movie mashup channel, and I'm working on hopefully some new stuff here. So
All
just
right.
we could share links on our
Yeah.
social media, and people can find it that way.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, go to my Facebook page and you'll find a whole bunch of them. They make me smile, like I've told you before. I love movies, and so I love to, my favorite is, I love the song Neutron Dance, but I love that Dancing in Movies one with Neutron Dance. It's just, so great. So,
Well, thank you.